hello everyone, the 9 of you beautiful humans who have joined. Um,
And potentially more that may watch the VOD.
yeah, potentially, hopefully, people.
Hopefully, many more.
Hey Jupe, hopefully many more will not have to ask questions as much, or we won't have to repeat information. So, um, what are we going over today? Peon2, creator of many training modes, and including the universal training mode.
Yeah, I think that's the subject in question for today. Just to give a rundown on my universal training mode there, and sort of how you can collect values to be used with that, or to make your own training modes, all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. This is hard.
Yeah, will I go on a
So,
bit of a spiel about it while you set things up?
sure. Um,
Yeah, so this is a training mode that I made back 6 months ago or something. It's been a little bit as a donation incentive to a charity event that I ran back in 2019, uh, wherein I ran it was 10 games, I believe, at the time, and I sort of promised every FB Neo or just Final Burn at the time, because we were still on Fightcade one game at training mode, because there were a lot of games that didn't have training modes, and I had experience making training modes. So there I was, I had a few false starts. I was starting things up, I stopped it, not starting. I was
whoops.
getting frustrated with it, and I realized it clicked with me. The best way to go about this was to make a universal one. And then with the announcement of Fightcade 2, I sort of didn't want to do it again because I knew the emulation would be changing. As I, that's annoying because you're practicing. It's not the same when you practice. But then when I hear that Fightcade 2 was to be implementing Lua scripting, suddenly I'm on board again. And with that, I started putting in the time, and I got a basic functionality of this script up and going with I think it was like 8 compatible games. And then from there, gradually, I've added more myself, or other people from other communities have come in and implemented um, compatibility for their games. Like, for example, POF, one of the developers for Fightcade, came in and did some work to get Super Turbo going. So it has Super Turbo support. I didn't have to do any of that myself, because the idea of this script is it's meant to be plug and play. You plug in the RAM addresses and then you play. Um, so yeah, I think today we're going to have a bit of a look into setting up a game ourselves.
Yeah, it should be cool.
And
It's really interesting that
yeah,
when I was writing the Vampire Savior training mode, I stole a lot of stuff from Gruflon's Third Strike
oh god,
implementation,
that
and I was just thinking like this could just probably just be universalized, and then Peon2 had already had that thought and was well on their way to implementing it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? It's stuff like, oh, showing buttons, it can just be abstracted away from the game. It has nothing to do with the game. It's just in Fightcade or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
The
And
hitbox
we're
stuff is the real genius stuff. I think that's mostly like Jed and Dammit who did a lot of that
yeah,
work.
exactly. Like I would have mixed it up a little, but all their sort of RAM addresses and drawing the boxes and all that sort of thing, I just robbed that code, because that's one of the great things about working open source, and Lua is inherently, open source. You can mix and match code from different people, and as all nice people do in open source projects, I gave them credit in the source code and
As
on
one
the
does.
repo. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Be humble.
'Cause like those were scripts sitting there since like 2010 or something. You know what I
It's
mean?
wild. Yeah,
So
you gotta do what I like to call code archaeology.
yeah,
So you gotta
exactly.
find like really old stuff. You gotta be like MAME R
You
R
gotta
Lua scripting,
resurrect it and
and then you
sort of
find this Google
squish it in.
code archive.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Oh my
And then you're like,
god.
oh, how did people do this? And you just kind of like, you know, look around on the internet for stuff that people have done. Um, but anyway, um, maybe first, I think maybe we want to show our goal, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I have a checkout of um, Peon2's FB Neo training mode, and um, I think yeah, it might just be nice just to show how it works. You saw a little
Hmm.
bit in the video there. Let me find one of my many Fightcade 2 installs. Alright, so here's Fightcade FB Neo, and what we want to do is load a game. And I think you have an Alpha 2 implementation.
Yes, I do.
And all of my stuff is not very organized. I apologize.
Yeah, so it's as simple as you load up the Lua script menu and you hit run. Some people get confused. They try to run like an individual script, let there be alpha2.lua in there somewhere, but you just want to run the base one, FB Neo training mode, and it does all the work itself. It's the same one that you would run for every game.
This is interesting. Memory address is not found for Street Fighter Alpha 2. Config file not found. Game not supported.
Uh,
What did I do wrong? Alright.
what did I do wrong? I probably
What did we do
broke
wrong?
that recently.
You broke it recently. We could try a different
I'd
game.
say.
Interestingly
Yeah,
enough, I also worked on an Alpha 2 script.
unless you're using a
The ROM set.
different ROM set.
Okay, so this should be easy to figure out. Close this one.
You can, if you open just the, yeah, just FBNEO training mode.lua.
We'd have to find the ROM set name, which is Street Fighter Alpha 2U. Error reading value inputs using default. Error reading hitbox.enabled from config file using default. Well, is that a detrimental error? Seems like not.
No, the way I have it set up is that every time I update the config, it would sort of invalidate the previous versions of config. So I'm the kind of guy who's not bothered to go back and redo the configs. So it will just it'll just replace any ones that are not there with the default ones. If you get me.
Got it.
There's
It's a
there's a
fallback.
table of default values. Yeah, exactly.
So as you can see, there is an input display. Blah, 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 blah. This one looks like an older one. There's some hitboxes, stuff like that. Alright, how do I get to the start menu? There we go.
Yeah, so just for context, like I'm not a real big Street Fighter 2 guy or explored a lot of Street Fighter 2 or the intricacies of the game, but just from knowing some of the RAM addresses that I would have found myself or through cheats files or other Street Fighter Alpha 2 training modes and stuff like that, I was able to get this all up and running.
Yeah, you don't really have to know much about the game to do one of these in some ways.
Yeah.
But I guess the important thing to go over is, like, what do we want out of this? Like, basically, stuff like inputs are universal between games, right? Like, so if I want the dummy to hold down back or something like that, that's going to be in this training mode, and you don't really have to supply anything to get that done, right? So things like that, or input recording, are features that you would probably want in any training mode, and those things are somewhat universal. So Peon2's script basically abstracts all of those things, and you essentially implement modules for things like refilling meter, having infinite time, stuff like that. So basically, you implement or define values for games, um, and then the training mode takes care of like all of the internals for exposing features like input recording, input display, stuff like that. So it's fairly low effort, and that's kind of where we want to get today with a new game. We want to take advantage of all of Peon2's abstracted work and implement it for a particular game.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, we kind of have to understand a few basic elements. The first thing we have to understand is like, what is even a RAM address? What are we looking for in order to get infinite time, in order to get infinite health? So this is where we want to get. We want to have the same training mode, but with not Alpha 2, with a new game. And I think that game is going to be Vampire Hunter. Especially for Phoebe, who may be watching. And because I like the Vampire series, so whatever. So I'm going to just close this for now. And
Yeah, Vampire Hunter is a game that I haven't implemented yet or anything like that. So I'm happy to get that knocked out because there's a lot of basically this is the kind of script that can support nearly every fighting game that's using the Final Burn Neo emulator on Fightcade, if you get me. So there's no reason that if you're a fan of a game like we were talking about Azura Buster earlier, or something mad like Dragon Ball Z Battle 2 or Dino Rex or any of those games that even Cyberbots is a slightly smaller community nowadays. Um,
you have Cyberbot in there, right?
yeah, I have Cyberbots in there. Sort of smaller scenes, because when you look at a big, sort of very technically impressive, nearly intimidating training mode like the Third Strike one, Growlflons, it's like you need some premier talent to get something like that going. But with a script like this, where I've abstracted a lot of the work, it's not going to be as good as something bespoke, tailor made as Growlflons. But it's all about a minimum level. You know, even us poverty players have rights to a minimum level of a training mode.
Even as yes, as an anarcho-communist, I believe that those in poverty have. All right.
Yeah.
So what we're looking for when we make these training modes, or at least for this one, right? Basically, when you run a game, there is a CPU. There's CPU, and for most of these cases, it's one called the M68000, the Motorola M68K. But you don't have to really know about that. That's for
beautiful
nerds.
chip.
It's a beautiful chip. I wish I had one. Um, and basically, there's a CPU, and this thing does the maths and logic and that kind of stuff. And maybe in like 10, if we do like 10 of these, why do other emulators not work?
Emulators that work with the like this. Well, Neo Geo games do run on
the Motorola 68K.
yeah, they would work with Final Burn Neo. So if you look at the supported games list, I would have Neo Geo games on there.
Yes.
Like
so,
I have Matra Melee
Oh,
on there.
nice.
Or no,
Someone asked
oh
me
no,
for
that was work in progress. That's something I haven't pushed yet.
Ah, nice.
But I do have. It does support Neo Geo, and I do have preliminary support for stuff like KOF, but I haven't finished that.
Yes. So the basic answer is like, just we haven't done the work yet. There's nothing that's preventing the work from being done, and some people have.
I was working on Sam Show 5. Sam Show 3 actually is finished, and it's up there
Nice.
for you to use if you are a Sam Show 3 player, and that's a Neo Geo game.
Yeah, basically we just gotta We need more people to do the work, which is part of the reason why we're doing this stream.
Yeah, I'm one man, one busy man, and this is something made. It's not. Listen, guys. You can make your own game. Fit with this now. We'll show you how.
All right. So, um, there's like two. The major thing we need to worry about is something called RAM. So, the CPU generally does like maths and logic. It makes decisions and stuff. But the RAM is kind of like a working memory for those calculations. So maybe an easy way of thinking about it is like if you want to do like an addition or something like that, let's say you want to do 18 plus 1, maybe 21. And then, you kind of do this thing where you go 9 and 3, right? When we wrote down this math equation, right? We used our head to be like 8 plus 1, or we used the paper and our brain to store some memory, right? Like we need to know what we're adding. So if I'm looking at 1, I'm like, okay, I needed to add 8 to 1 and get to 39. So we needed kind of like some scratch space, right, in order to make that calculation. Or let's say we wanted to then add another number, like 11 here. We needed some scratch space over here and this number in order to keep track of what we were working with, right? And computers sort of need the same thing. So you can imagine like there's these little boxes, and one of these might be the timer, and one of these might be health. Another one might be meter or something like that. And due to like just the context of the game or whatever how the program's running, right? Every frame, like every time there's like frame happen, you might run some logic, right? But you can imagine that every 60 or so frames, if the game is running at 60 frames per second, one of the logical operators might be decrement the timer, right? So every 60 frames, probably every game, or every 30 frames, depending on it, wants to decrement the timer. And how does it do that? It says, I want to look for the timer address, or the box of the timer. And you can think about this box kind of like a mailbox, and it has an address. And for simplicity's sake, let's call that address number 7, or something like that. 7. And so when the game goes to decrement the timer, it might go, look for what's in box number 7. And let's say in box number 7, the value was 54. So it might say, our script might say, or the game might say, load up whatever's in box 7. So like load box 7, and that might be 54. And then it might say something like decrement whatever value was here. So decrement whatever was in that box. So that would be something like 54 minus 1, which is 53. And then it would go and it would say, now that I'm done doing that, I want to write box 7 with the value 53. Does that make sense? I don't know if it was a good explanation or not.
I think it's fairly straightforward anyway.
Yeah.
So
So basically, when the computer's running, it stores these values in just the same way. So when it wants to decrement health, it will do a similar process. We'll load what's in the box, change what's in the box, and then set what's in the box. That makes sense. So if in our example, what we would like to do is, for instance, for our training mode, we would want to have infinite time, right? Because we wouldn't want to keep having to load states or something like that. So what we would like to do is always just write to box 7 the value 99, something like that. And that's what we're kind of doing with the same thing with health and the same thing with meter. We just kind of want to have a full meter or a full health bar. depending on the configuration, of course. The troublesome thing is we have to find those things. Like, which box do you use, Mr. Computer? We don't always know which box that they use. Um, so generally, we use a tool with MAME called the MAME debugger. And instead of showing images, I think I am going to just open MAME. Um, so I have a checkout of MAME. It lives in my VSAP training mode. Nope, that's not where it lives. It lives in my stream folder that I prepared specifically for the stream. um, so in order to start MAME in debug mode, maybe I should go over that a little bit. Oh, I hate Windows.
It can be a pain in the ass.
Users. Let's see.
Yeah, so this is the Windows command prompt to anyone that's not familiar with it.
So
So
basically,
this is
yeah, it's kind of annoying.
yeah, we're switching directories anyway to try and get in there.
Yep. So
What I
basically,
always tell people to do just to get them on the right track, I suppose people are quite bad when it comes to the change directories. Click it to the window in the Windows Explorer, and then you can open it from there either by shift right clicking the open thing here or just typing CMD up in the search bar.
wait, you can open it like hold shift and click?
I think some they might have gotten rid of that, but you can definitely type in the search bar just CMD and it will open CMD in that directory,
Oh,
like the
really?
Windows.
Alright,
Yeah,
let's do it that way.
it's very
Okay,
convenient.
there we go.
But because Windows is like a funny operating system, it doesn't always work, but usually it works.
Something went bad. Oh, there we go. If you look under resources, Kyle wrote a really good guide about setting this stuff up, so I'm not too worried about showing it in detail. Hopefully that link still works. If you look under Kyle's overview of MAME and CPS2, you can find directions that show how to open MAME with the debugger. So basically what we do is we type in mamerr.exe, which is the name of our program, mamerr.exe, and then we just say which game we want to run. And I'm going to run vsav because I love vsav and I know a lot about it. And then I think the command is -debug.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we get this really esoteric, weird-looking thing, which actually shows what the computer is doing. This is called assembly language, and these are the ones and zeros of the actual code. And
Yeah.
these are registers values, but I can't give you a course in computer science right now. A, because I'm unqualified, and B, because it would just take too long. But
Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow anyway. Put it like that.
anyway, this
A lot
stuff's
of a
really
lot of stuff.
cool, but it's also not what we're looking for.
Yeah, it can sometimes having in-depth knowledge of this stuff can help you find the really strange memory values, but usually you don't need to bother with it.
um, anyway, these are our boxes. This window shows, if you go to debug, memory window, this shows our boxes that I was trying to describe, perhaps poorly, over here. So yeah, this box is our RAM addresses box. But the thing is that these values aren't called just like box 7, right? They're not just called health or anything like that. They have an address. Um, tablet plus mouse hard. Okay. So yeah, we have this table of all the values in the game, right? And this would be saying that we're starting at 0 in this row, right? But actually, registers are akin to the space you'd read the current box of values 7 into to do your subtract before writing it.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like it's your bit like if you're counting on your fingers, you know, your fingers are your registers, or what you can immediately think of in your head. Like if you're doing a very quick addition of small numbers instead of working off the paper, it'd be very fast, albeit smaller memory.
Um, there's unfortunately one nuance that we have to know when reading these, right? Um, but let me
Yep.
get to that in a second. So this 23 is value 1, I believe, and this is value 2, df. Um, and you might be saying, why df? How is that a
Who put the
number?
letters there?
Why are there letters there? And that's because, for computer science course reasons, computers a lot of times communicate in what's called hexadecimal. Hex uh, decimal.
Hex meaning 6 and decimal meaning 10. 6 plus 10, 16. It's yeah, all my homies hate decimal. We switch to hexadecimal in computer science. And now
So when we count in decimal, right? And I'm sorry, I can't write straight. I'm leaning. We count from 1 to 9, right? And then we add a 1 to the ones place and start at 0 again, right? I guess we count from 0, especially if you're a computer programmer. Um, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then we go to 11. And what this represents is we have one grouping of 10, and then we add 1, right? So this is 10 plus 2, etc., until we get to 20. And then we know we have 2 times 10 plus 0. Hexadecimal is the same thing, kind of, except we count from 1 to 9, and then instead of the next value being 10, the next value is A. B, C. Oh, I keep doing ones. 0 to 9. I'm not a good computer programmer.
yeah, these letters here they count up to 15, so F would be 15. It's just like if we had added our own imaginary numbers, like a DERF or a K11, or whatever you want to call it. So it's just think of it as compacting larger numbers in a smaller space. So for example, you could represent the number 100, whereas if we were doing it just ourselves, it would be, 3 digits. Whereas with this system, you can do it in two. And that's not the sole reason for hexadecimal being used. It also fits in nicely with how computers store and read numbers like that. But I don't think that's too important to what we're going over here anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever get stuck on hexadecimal, like the
Is
calculator on your computer can convert it for you, or you can Google how to convert it or whatever. It's not as big a
Let's be
stopgap
real.
as
This
you
is what
might
you're gonna
first
do.
assume. Yeah,
This
you're
is
gonna
what you
go on
do.
rapid tables, and you're gonna
You're
use
gonna
the
be like,
rapid tables
what's
hexadecimal converter.
the only other important thing is hex numbers start with X or OX. So let's say
Yeah,
convert 16 to a decimal number. Oh, it's 22. Why is that? Because one grouping of 16 plus 6 is 22. Um,
16 plus 6, 22. So
yep. So basically, that's the weird thing, right? So if we wanted, oh, not binary, decimal to hexadecimal. So the reason why I mentioned this is right. It's like you might have a timer value, right? And you might be looking for 99, but what you actually want to look for is 63. 0x16, which means all of the numbers in hex equals 0.
uh, unfortunately, computer scientists have disregarded mathematics probably 80 years ago now, so we're playing by different rules.
Yeah. So that's just a hiccup. It's pretty obvious once you start working on it, and it's actually not that important that we know super much about it. We just got to know that these values, when we get them from the computer, they're maybe not going to be exactly how we think of them, right? So, um, so for instance, in this table, right, there are one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 groupings of 2 hex hex numbers representations, right? But yet the next row is 10, right, which actually means 16 values. So just be aware of like the different counting. And there are tons of YouTube videos about hexadecimal, and you can learn it in like 10 minutes. It seems really scary, but it's actually not. And for these purposes, you're not doing stuff like hex math a lot or any of that stuff. We're just trying to find the value and know what the value is and not be surprised when we see that the value might look a little different than what we're looking for.
Okay.
So brief excursion into hexadecimal.
Yeah, that's over. Everyone should be up to speed now.
Now, big sigh of relief. Everything is simple. No more math. um, so actually, what I'm going to do is basically go through 2 ways of finding cheat values. So one way we can do it is we can just cheat. And by that, I mean there are many wonderful people who love to do MAME cheating, right? And luckily, Ivy, who's in the chat right now, showed me that someone compiled all of them. And this zip file that you can download, and you should be able to type !resources to find the sheet that my crib sheet. You can download this zip file. We can open this. Open these cheats with your unregistered WinRAR that you use for aesthetics. And you can see, like, pretty much every game has RAM values documented.
Yeah, it's it's comprehensive to say the least. Doesn't
And,
mean it has everything you'd want, but it's gonna have a good few of them, probably.
and for today, the one that we are interested in, imagine registering WinRAR, is I think I'm going to be looking at Vampire Hunter. And these cheats are in a format that are supposed to be consumable by. I think these are for Final Burn Neo, yeah. But what we're really interested is in the RAM values. So it's pretty straightforward how this text file is organized, although we don't have to understand super much about it. So you can probably guess what it is. So this cheat is named Infinite Credits. It defaults to the value 0, and 0 is disabled. But when it's enabled, what we'd like to do is write to this RAM value the number 9. Make sense? So basically, we want to look through files like this to find some of the things we might be interested in with our training mode. So infinite credits, I don't really care about that, but infinite time, that seems like one of the things that we'd like. So I'm actually just going to close that by accident. And live coding. Let's just kind of just take some of them that we know we're interested in. Looks like they have finished this round now, which we don't really care about. We can always reset. Select the background. We don't really care about that. Stuff like this we do care about, though. Infinite Special, Player 1. Heck yeah, I want that in my training mode. So these are Player 1 things. Never get stunned. That seems like useful, but not for our video today. Might be a little bit too much. Infinite Specials.
Exercise for the watcher.
You just said my least favorite thing. The implementation of such is trivial and left as an exercise to the reader.
Oh, I love seeing those where when it's just too much effort to do it.
All right. Behold, that's my favorite. So the way they name stuff here is like kind of weird.
Yeah, you could tell the certain kind of character found these addresses and named them anyway.
So we need to look for. This is drain all energy now, right? But there's no infinite energy. So I can assume that because this RAM value is. They're calling energy health, just to be disambiguate that a little bit. So we can see that when that's enabled, they're setting this RAM value to be 0, which in my mind says we are setting the health value to 0. So that's probably what we want to. If we wanted to, we could set this to have infinite health by doing something like 0xx and then some large number. Energy is a very boomer thing to call health. Ivy.
Yeah.
Ivy. Anyway,
If we don't know what the health is, as we saw earlier in the memory viewer in MAME RR, what you can do is, and what I've had to do in the past, is you just open up like a new game and you literally just look at that address. What is it right now? Usually health defaults to 90 or something along those lines in Capcom games, I've noticed. But you can always check yourself. And it's worth playing around and testing these kind of things to figure out what works, exactly for you.
alright. So we had a little bit of ADD, which is not surprising given who I am. Um, alright. So basically, what I'm going to do live is just follow Kyle's workflow for using the cheat engine in MAME. Oh wait, first, these are actually all of the RAM values that Kyle has found because Kyle is a G, along with Jed and some other people. So you can see that, like, Vampire Savior is pretty well documented because of
Yeah.
that, which made it so that I could use it as a crutch and didn't really have to look for too many RAM values. Um, but Kyle does go and explain um, how to use the debugger and how to understand what RAM is and how the CPU of the Motorola 68K works in enough detail to get you to understand these things. I've also listed a few more resources about Motorola 68K in the resources document that I made. So we went over a lot of this kind of stuff in Gist, probably a little less about how cheats are implemented and stuff like that. But for a quick and dirty about the debugger, you can look at this part, which is exercise number 3, cheat init and save states. And just to give an overview of what we're going to try to do to make it clearer, I think would be good. So, one, we're going to open the MAME debugger, which we did, if you remember. We went to the thing and we opened a command line prompt and typed in this command. So we've done that. What we're looking for is number of start button pushed. So in VSAV, as Kyle explains here, there's a way of doing a special type of random called shadow, and the way that you input that is by pressing the start button 5 times and then hitting select on the random portrait. So basically what that tells us is this game probably keeps track of the number of start button presses. So how do we go about finding that? So basically the MAME debugger has a command, and it's not in all caps. It's called cheat init. And what cheat init does is it basically copies, I believe, this is me just I haven't read the documentation, but I think this is what it does. It copies all of the current RAM addresses to a big old table or a file. And then what we want to do is we want to have two save states. One will have, let's say, some number of button presses on start. Let's say it's 6 start button presses. 2. The second one will have 3 button presses. We want to compare these two save states. So this is our mental model, is like there's a box here that has start presses. We don't know which box it is, but we know the difference between the box's values between the save states is 3, or however many 6 minus 3, right? And so we want to run a command that says, "Hey MAME, please find me a list of all the boxes that have a difference of 3." Let me know if that doesn't make sense. So this is going to be tedious.
Yeah, this is where people get to watch the fun part.
This is the fun part. Okay, that makes sense, at least to one person. Ivy, you're smart, though.
Cheating.
Tatters, you
already
too.
know.
You're also smart. You're all smart. So basically what I want to do is run the game, and hopefully I have my buttons pressed like I want them. Aw. They like you. You're the people's champ, Peon.
Yeah, don't worry, Gary. I'm not streaming this, so this doesn't count.
This doesn't
I'm
count.
only commentating.
Also, this is fun. You can see the matrix. Look at the matrix. So first, in MAME, you gotta find where your save and load states are. And so I just set mine to have 2 states, 1 and 2, and here's my load buttons, and here's my save buttons. It's just kind of hard to find values in MAME, config keys in MAME, so I wanted to be clear about where those are. Again, you press
That's under tab, isn't it? Yeah.
Input general. Tab isn't the tab key. Press the tab key. Then
right
go to
above caps lock.
Input general, then go to user interface, and you can go to the bottom and use page up, and you'll be at that place. 3 and 4. Cool. So just to test, I think that I can make a save state. Oh, I can load a save state.
Nice.
Alright, so 3 will save a save state to 1, 4 to 2, blah blah blah. Jetta looking like an absolute unit. Okay, so what we want to do is, I don't want to, I want to have a hard reset. And Windows will hate me for resetting the game, apparently.
Ooh.
Yeah, I reset a little bit too
Ooh.
hard on this one.
Ooh.
Alright, I don't play
Thank
no
you,
games.
Windows.
Alright, so we want to have a fresh state, right? So usually you can do the hard reset and it'll work and not crash your computer, but I don't know. Obviously, it's not my fault that that happened. So it's kind of the way that the cheat engine runs, it like is kind of only processes work when the game is going. So we have to kind of use a little bit of a weird workflow to do this. Um, so let me just go through it, and I can do it again if it works out. Hopefully it does. So the first thing we want to do is press F5 or actually run the game, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the start button 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to save a state. And then I'm going to press it 3 more times. 7, 8, 9. And save a state. Okay, here's where it gets weird. Basically, I want to pause the game. And I want to type in cheat init. And what cheat init will do is it will save. If we look at the document I was writing that's terrible, basically what cheat init will do will save the state of all the RAM addresses as it currently is. And so in this state we're going to have 9 presses, right? Cheat init, and it's going to look like nothing has happened, but like I was saying, you're funny, Ivy. Like I was saying, the cheat, I guess this is more the debugger engine doesn't process inputs while the game isn't running. So I typed in a command and it's like, hey, what's happening? It's fine. What you do is you click the tilde key and it'll advance the game 1 frame. And now we see that actually the computer was paying attention. It just didn't have time to think. So we believe right now that this list of RAM values somewhere has a box that had nine presses in it. Makes sense? Now what we want to do... Were you going to say something, Peon?
Yeah, well, that's what we're doing anyway. We're just looking to cut it down from 82,000 different addresses now.
Yeah, hopefully we're not going to get 80,000 back or something, because that would suck.
Yeah, that's hard to search by hand, you know.
You don't want to do that. So what we want to do now is load state 1, which should have 6 presses. And then what we want to do is ask MAME to find the differences.
What you could do before loading it is we already know there's 9, right?
We already know there's 9.
So we could say just single out the ones that are equal to 9.
How do you do that?
As the cheat next.
What's the flag?
Equals EQ.
It's just EQ. And it's like cheat
EQ,
comma 9.
Comma 9.
Would that work?
Should work. If I'm a true blue programmer, we're gonna find out.
Look at that.
Ooh.
This is interesting.
Ooh, I'm good.
You are good, but none of these RAM values are correct.
What?
I just know offhand that the range is going to be within 8400 or 8800.
Shoot. Okay.
That means I did something wrong. That's all I'm saying. Where is
you press it? You press it 9 times, didn't you?
I thought I did. Let's see. Maybe I pressed it 8 times.
You'll need to cheat in it again because it's adjusted the table. If you get me.
I got you. Cheat in it. Blank. And then we want to do cheat. Next EQ 9.
You'll notice, just for the viewers that might not know, you'll notice that a lot of all these commands for finding different RAM values would be under the cheat prefix. So it'd be like cheat init, cheat next, so on and so forth. Usually they do have a shorthand if you don't want to type out cheat init or cheat next, which would be like CI for cheat init or CN for cheat next. So you just need to type in 2 letters rather than the whole thing.
Maybe you can go and find the
And
debugger reference, and I can add it to the resources.
yeah, yeah. I'll grab that for you there.
Okay, where was I? Okay, so basically what happened was I probably didn't press the buttons the right number of times, I'm assuming, or I did something wonky with save states. So we're gonna try a hard reset, which didn't crash this time, but also
Yeah, you'll find yourself doing this sort of thing a lot of times. Sometimes you do just need to restart and have another go at it.
the good news is probably most people will just find the values that they're interested in their cheat files. But this is like the hard stuff where you need to find other stuff, and yeah, a lot of times the cheat files will actually give you hints, but I'm trying to show off this way of doing things because it's a little more sophisticated. So we run the game. Actually, I think we could do it this way. So I could press start 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause. Cheat init. Increment frame, which is the tilde key. And then do start the game again with P. 1, 2, 3, P. Then we want to find, I think increment is inc. I hope.
Yeah.
So cheat next, and then inc 3. I think is what I want. I'm not sure of the syntax. Inc, comma 3 seems right.
Yeah, it uses commas.
Invalid condition type.
Next.
Maybe it's I 3. Nope.
Oh, it's IN for increase.
All right.
Increment increase.
So what I did was, first I pressed start button 6 times, saved all of the cheats into the cheat memory, or saved all the RAM addresses into the cheat engine's memory, and then I asked the cheat engine, were there any values which incremented by 3 since the last time I did cheat in it? And yes, 8444 did, right? So here's the fun thing you can do. So we're like, somehow we got one value, and maybe that's the right value. I hope so. I don't even know offhand if I did this right.
I hope.
But basically what we want to do now is go to the memory window and say, let's go to FF8444. And you can see that that value is 5. So when we play the game, you can see every time I press the start button, that value goes up 1.
Seems like a good candidate.
So that seems like a good candidate. So yeah, this is basically what you want to do to find RAM values. And sometimes they're going to be more complex to find. But while I'm here, there's something interesting that I wanted to note. So if we find wherever we had our I used
Yeah,
8
that's
start
the thing.
inputs.
We can't
Thanks,
say we
Kyle.
found it. We're not, as the people who haven't programmed the game, we can't say for certain. But we can say, 99% sure. Most likely, it's what we're looking for.
Can't even say we found it, just, oh, it could be. It could also be that this box is used for multiple things. But I trust that Kyle used a value that's probably not used for multiple things because they're very knowledgeable about
Sometimes
this.
what will happen is you'll find what's called like a reference value in the game. So, for example, sometimes in the code, you might have the health stored several times over,
Yep.
but only one of them will actually, when you change it, actually update the game. So you need to figure out which one you do have to change for the training mode functionality.
Sometimes also the boxes are just contain an address of another box.
Yeah.
And it gets kind of hairy. But I wanted to show off something interesting about values in general. Um, so if I look at my stream folder, I had this text document, right? And I'm making an assumption about this. I assume, so maybe let me take a step back. I know, for instance, all of the player state values in Vampire Savior start off at 8400. Whoops. 8400, right? And so I would assume once we made it past the character select that we're going to see a bunch of values go in at 8400. You see? Lots of values in this point. Because the developers were like, I'm going to keep most of the related functionality in the same place. So these are actually a lot of the boxes for Vampire Savior RAM values for player 1. And there's another one for 8800, which shows all of player 2's status values and just working state for the player. And so actually what it ends up being is there's a constant 400 in hex difference between those two values. And if you look at these values over here, you can see that player's 1 health lives at FF83CB, and player 2 health lives at FF88CB. So you can assume that something like all of the values for player 1 and player 2 will just have a difference of 500 in hex. Right? So if we had found the player 1 health, which is this number here, 0x, we would always know that that number plus 0x500 equals the P2 address. And looking around in cheat files, you'll kind of be able to kind of see that. Like I just literally just guessed that that was the case for this game, and it was. So we can assume that there's about 500 values or 500 in hex 500 values that the game is keeping track of, and they start and begin within this range, if that makes sense. And that's really useful to know. Cool.
It cuts down this process here, where we were typing in values and guessing stuff, by half, because if you know this, then if we didn't know, about meter, we'd just have to find player 1 meter.
Exactly.
We'd have player 2.
We'd have player 2. It's
Work
also
smart, not hard.
Yes, and this is a lot of information to get through. There's also interesting things you can do. Like once you know that 8800 is what player 2 inputs are, you can kind of just open the RAM watcher and then hit the tilde key and see what's happening, and kind of like try to deduce what's happening. Like you'll sit in training mode, or like, once you have infinite time, and just be like, every time I press light punch, what happens? Or every time I guard, what happens? And then you kind of just look frame by frame. And that's actually like, it's not a proven way of finding RAM values, but a lot of times it's like just that simple. Like every time I block, I notice that this thing is changing, or whatever. And you can start your investigation from those sorts of threads without having to use the debugger and know exactly what you're looking for. Anyway, I think that's enough on the MAME type stuff, because I imagine a lot of people aren't, but I think that it's a good enough place to start, where using this video to show off Kyle's process and reading Kyle's process, this is for like people who are going to watch the VOD, that would be enough to like answer some of the basic questions. And then obviously feel free to reach out to myself, NB, or Peon in the Fightcade 2 Lua channel if you are looking for more advanced things or kind of want more help. I've also listed in the resources an alternate way of doing it, which is a little more streamlined, and it's called Cheat Engine. And I linked a really long playlist of videos that show in depth how to find things like health values in games that are not on Fightcade 2, for instance. And the content that they used was actually Mega Man to show off the the features for Cheat Engine. So if you're interested in stuff like this, you should go and watch that video series. And it's a little more straightforward, a lot of better tools in that workflow. I just haven't had a reason to use it yet, but I'm keeping that in my back pocket. I have watched the series, and the person who does the tutorials is excellent. So I would recommend maybe even using that method rather than MAME if you're interested in finding more esoteric RAM values. Um, cool. So I think now we will start to get into the fun stuff and start to implement a training mode for Vampire Hunter.
Yeah, it's time to abstract, baby. So we're going knee deep in the Lua programming language now. So,
Hopefully not too deep.
but
Um,
yeah, like honestly, you don't need to know too much.
yeah, the whole point of this is that you don't have to know too much. You just got to find a few numbers, hopefully plug them in, ask Peon2 where you fucked up, which is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I'd
um,
say the easiest way to start off with doing this is look if you look under it should be I don't know where you have my folder with all the games. Um, do you know the one there should be a folder called games. Yeah, yeah, sorry, you have it there, yeah. Just look for the game, a game there that is on the same sort of hardware as whatever you're looking for. So, for example, we're looking at VSAV here. So, on the same hardware would be, Alpha or Cyberbots. And there's a few things you can immediately copy over because it would be the same hardware.
so
Um,
I think the game that I'm looking at, you would want the ROM name, I assume.
yes, so uh, you want to name it something descriptive of what the game is, which is preferably the ROM name,
So,
because we're going to link to that later. So it makes sense if you name it after the game that you're trying to make a training mode for. So
all right. So first of all, I want to know if I have the ROM. Yep. So I think we want Night Warriors, Darkstalker's Revenge, V Hunt JR2. And if someone, I've only played Vampire Hunter twice, so if I'm using the wrong ROM or something, it's probably going to be
yeah,
okay. But you should let me know in the chat so I can correct it while I go.
another thing I'll say just briefly. Uh, Earlier in the stream, we had an issue where we ran the wrong Street Fighter Alpha ROM set, but my script does support sort of packaging multiple ROMs of the same game, so they might be just different revisions under the same training mode because usually they don't bother to change the the RAM addresses, so they'd work just fine between two different versions of Street Fighter Alpha 2. And I might show you how to do that later. But we just get Hunter set up here, I think.
All right, looks like we have Hunter set up. I think I did switch coin and start. Okay. Cool. So we have the game working. I think we'll leave that to one side for now while we look at the code. Okay, so this is more or less, let me put my stick away, my first time looking at this. And so, like, as a programmer, I can kind of understand where this is going. So, let's see. So basically, like Peon was saying, there are modules for each game, and these are game specific um, configuration files, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
it looks like what we have is um, this is describing some of the game states, right? Recording
Yeah, so that's the
inputs.
config file. So a lot of that is, individual settings that I would have found for the game that work. So that could be like positioning the GUI on the screen where it is, like, so it's not overlapping with like a character portrait or whatever.
Hmm. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So these are just some config properties, and I imagine most of these are pretty. They're pretty simply named.
Yeah. It'd make even more sense when you look at how they're read in the main file. We might take a dive into that later.
Looks like we have some boxes, some addresses
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
named.
we're immediately getting stuck in there. So you could I'd say you probably have some of those there already that you can fill in. So what's important to know is that this game, it takes methods of doing things, right? Because for different games, you kind of need to approach things different ways. Like I think you copied this from Cyberbots, did you?
Street Fighter
Or
Alpha 2.
or sorry, Alpha 2. Because in Alpha 2, it also, if you've ever played the game, it has red health, where the red health drains at the same time, right? Like just behind it to show how much damage you're doing, that sort of thing. So in order for it to update the health and look proper, I need to change the red health as well. So that's why you can see values for red health there as well. But you wouldn't have to do that for every game. So if you scroll down there a bit, there's going to be something like player one set health or something, and it would be, yeah, you see there. I'm writing into both the player health and the player red health just so it looks proper. Because sometimes you do need to take these little extra bits just for your game. Maybe it does things a little different than normal. Like another game I have in there, Red Earth. It's not usually setting meters as simple as just writing the number in, but you need to mess with a few different values. So that's just one thing I had to abstract. So
That makes sense.
know a
I'm
little
pretty
bit
sure Vampire
about
Hunter
what's going
is
on
one
with
of
your
those
game.
games also, which
Yeah,
is which is one of the reasons why I copied it from Street Fighter Alpha 2.
yeah, yeah,
um, so yeah, as Peon was saying, we have some, values that we set, and then there's some functions for getting those values, um, which are going to be
yeah,
read by I'm assuming the main script, which is
yeah.
probably this
There
one.
is there is a crap ton of functions there,
Yeah.
and they all feed into the main script, which drives the whole operation. The only thing you need to touch here, and you only ever need to touch once when you're setting up your game, is you see there's a table there called games, and in there you basically just add a field for your own game. So yeah, as you would there. Um,
So what we're doing is we're saying the ROM name. It's vhunt JR2. I think that was it. I hope it was. We'll have
yeah,
to do
that's
some
that's what we set it to.
much renaming. And
So
then
now the script recognizes V Hunter. I
and
actually didn't make the venture training mode maxi sort of sent that in for me. Like
they
that's the
forked
thing.
yours.
I didn't have to write all of these myself. Other people have contributed.
That's tight. That's fun. I like that. That's
It's
why I wanted to
it's
do the
great.
stream. Because I want to meet
Yeah,
more people that are nerdy about this stuff and do good
yeah.
stuff.
Just while we're looking at this, we might break it down here. So the first field there, that's what it expects your config folder and file to be called. So we called it vhunter jr2. Hitboxes is the file that handles hitboxes. You might have to do a little bit of digging for that, but I do have a couple of files set up at the moment. So, like, I have JoJo hitboxes, I have Marble hitboxes, CPS3 hitboxes, CPS2 hitboxes. I have KOF hitboxes in there. I don't think I'm using the KOF ones at the minute, but I had something I was playing with that I was, and so on and so forth. And if you don't have hitboxes for your game, for example, Sam Show 3 there, you just leave it out. You don't need to
Ah,
worry about it. And then the icon file, that's for displaying the inputs on the side. So most games we've done have been Capcom games. We've been using Capcom input. But for example, if you look at Last Blade 2 or Sam Show, we use the Neo Geo 4 button config. So that's how you set them up anyway. A lot of setting this up is looking at examples of other games on similar architecture and just like copying that over.
Yep, it's
So
dope.
we could probably jump back into the config file there because that was everything we needed to do in the main file. It's just we're just working in the config file now.
All right. So I would assume we want to copy some of these values, right,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
our running list that we made right here. And I might have to do some explaining. Um, let's see, actually, let's open this file in here and then do a split view. Alright, so infinite time, I wonder if infinite time is one of the functions that we want to do. And this function is abstracted, but really what this is doing, it's called write. WB equals write byte, and it's really an exposed function from the Lua emulator called memory.write byte. And what this is what we were talking about earlier. Um, oop, oop, when we were saying we want to write something in our box, right? Except it's not box 7, but we still want to write 99. um, so for the game that we copied, this was the RAM address where it lived, but we know that in Vampire Hunter, this is the box that it lives in. So pretty much we can just copy paste that, and I don't think we actually have to put it in hex, right? But
Um, do you know? Does it use? See, some games I wouldn't know off the top of my head. What you can do is actually check if you're to go into MAME debugger and just look at the memory window. You could see on the first frame what it is. That's what I usually do, and I set it to that. Same with the health and stuff like that
my
for max
intuition
health.
is that we'll see it when we do it.
It's yeah. We'll see what happens.
Uh,
That's always a big part of it.
I'm hoping infinite special means meter.
Yeah, I hope it's I hope so.
So there's actually something interesting. We have two values for this one, and that I assume that means something like infinite special might be. Um, you best be making my Luas 0xa. If we remember, that's 10. So I imagine that this means stocks of super, right? And this is a bigger number, and I imagine this means like sorry, I should have been more clear. I imagine this value means stocks of super for player 1, and I imagine this is the value of that stock, or amount of that stock. So, you'll be playing a fighting game and you can get multiple meters and whatnot. So that's why sometimes you'll see two values written. And, yeah. Actually, this isn't a red health game, because we would have two values here, I believe. Maybe it is,
Yeah.
maybe it isn't. So I'm going to comment out the red health ones.
Or we're gonna run it and it will look really silly.
Or it will look
We'll
really
find out.
silly. Sometimes that's part of the fun of this.
Yeah.
Um, and we know P1 meter, and then I'm assuming we're going to want something like P1 stocks and
Yeah.
local P2 stocks equals.
So just so people know, writing the variables up at the top here isn't strictly necessary. Like you saw down the bottom, I had time just plug straight in. But this is how you should be doing it, and it looks much neater. And usually I'm just too lazy to clean up what I'm writing.
I'm exactly the same way. P1 meter should be that, and P2 meter should be here. And then health. Health we know is this for player 1. And then we're straight all energy now. Bloop. Bloop. 8388, they're 500 away. So we're going to have to do some investigation about what the max health in this game is, like what value this should be set to, right? Because if we remember, we were just like, oh, setting it to
Yeah,
0 might be, 0 health, but we don't know actually how big or small that value is. So hopefully
like
this doesn't make our game
most
crash.
Capcom games do use that, but obviously it's not a given. It's something you do have to play with.
And
Same with max meter. I think, but I think the script is setting it to 70 there, is it? Or which we were
oh,
using?
this
Yeah,
was
70.
my random value. Oh, this is special. Oh, max meter. Ah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
70. 70. Cool.
Put
Um,
put that in hex there. Just so if you look at it there, it's yeah.
all right.
Sometimes it gets confusing working with two number systems.
Yeah, eventually you just kind of figure it out, though.
Yeah.
You have to play around with it. We know our translation table. This is probably translating the way that FB Neo sees buttons versus the way that we
Yeah.
might see
And
buttons.
I can tell you it the only thing about it is it's like it's just kind of tedious to find, but all you got to do is when you run the game and you click in inputs at the top, it will give you all those names and you literally just got to type in all those names and then just associate each one of them with a unique number and the script goes away. Otherwise, it's not going to know how to do things like set what direction an opponent should be holding or whatever, or how to navigate the menu.
Usually they're pretty similar for, like, this is a 6 button game, right? And
Yeah,
usually
it's
Final
a
Burn
six
Neo
button game.
calls
It's
them
a
these.
Capcom game. It's almost certainly going to be the same as Alpha 2 where we copied it from.
Yep, this is why we copied from Alpha 2. um, so, for instance, we know Alpha 2 is a little bit more explored. So I worked on a fixing up an Alpha 2 training mode that previously existed. So we probably can find these values in the training mode, but we know right now we don't have them, right? We don't have hit stun values in our cheat file, and we don't have facing addresses or
Yeah,
whatever. So we don't need
yeah.
those. So we won't supply them.
My script will dynamically work with whatever you give it. So if you don't have those, it's going to yell at you that you don't have those when you run the game and then keep going.
Nice. So it tells you,
Yeah.
go find them, but I'll still work for you.
Yeah, exactly. You
um,
just won't be able to do everything.
um, so we have this function which wants a player 1 health value, and it's reading that from the variable that we had put above, right? So we had put player 1 health. This is the address where that lives. So this read function is saying read a word at P1 health address. And
So a word is 2 bytes stuck together. We should. Do we know how large the health is in V Hunter?
let's find it. So in order to do
Is
that,
it in the cheats
let's hope
file?
that I have a vampire hunter set up, and then we will go. I hope I have the ROM. That's the only thing that's weird to me. Um, so we'd have to go to my desktop, stream here, ROMs.
It's very powerful move to set up a training mode for a game you don't have the ROM.
um, and instead of going to the thing, I'm gonna be sneaky because I don't want to go through a bunch of windows right now. And vhunt ROMs, vhunt2. Maybe I downloaded the wrong ROM. I want vhunt jr2.
Gary, you're gonna confuse the kids.
You can only set watch, if just as an aside, watch points don't exist in Final Burn Neo, but they did in Final Burn Alpha RR. Um, but that emulator has, I would have switched completely to that emulator because it has better features, but it also doesn't really work compatibly with Windows 10. So I'm between a rock and a hard place with that one. I think what will eventually happen is that we will maybe, or I will look into watch points for RAM addresses in sometime in the near future. Okay, so this is bad. I don't have the ROM for MAME. I have it for Fightcade 2, which means I can't look at um, values.
Yeah, I'd reckon just write it as a byte, and then we just have a go at it and see what happens.
Oh, anyway, words are 2 byte values, which would look like something like 0000 to FFFF in hex, remember? And bytes, and I'm doing comments wrong in Lua because I use too many different languages. Bytes is obviously 1 byte, which looks something like FF or 0, 1 or 10 or whatever. I'm going to assume that health. I'm going to use my knowledge of Vampire Savior,
Yep.
which is another powerful strategy. Is going, oh, I know about this game, and it's either called health or life, and in Vampire Savior, it's a word value, so I'm going to assume that it's a word value in Vampire Hunter, because these things don't usually change that much. For now, we're going to do only white health. So in this write player 1 health, we're going to write a word for player 1 health, and the health value, the max health value. Okay, so where's health coming from? Peon. Is this supplied by whatever RAM value we have set in this function?
You don't need to worry about health. It's going to come from the actual training mode. That's its argument for the function.
Ah.
So health is going to be, most likely it's going to be max health, which is defined at the top. Most of the time, we're just setting it to max health.
Okay, that sounds good. And then we know P2 red health. We're just looking at 1 value for health right now. We know that the meter that we set was only P1 meter was the amount of meters. So we should expect that we'll have not many meters, but it will always be the max value. At least for now. We can go and amend that. We kind of want to get to a place where it works a little bit, I think. Player 1 meter, player 2 meter, right, player 2, infinite time we've got, and we want to run infinite time every frame.
Yeah, so the run function down there, I knew there was going to be stuff that I don't sort of cover in the main script. So for example, infinite time, like every game has that, so I probably should have that in the main script, but when are you ever going to run infinite like time except setting it to max, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
just have it plonked in run, like I kind of forgot about that.
No, this combo
And
changes when there's 69 seconds left on the clock.
yeah, like, whatever, dude. Like, whatever. Just do it in run. Same with coin. In other games where I have setting the coins or the credits, it's like, when are you ever gonna need exactly 8 credits or whatever? Just always set it to arbitrarily large number. And if there's other stuff that your game does, like one thing I haven't done yet that I've seen other games do is like stun. So they would
Yeah.
just paste the stun value on the screen there, because well, stun is something that a lot of games have that I could probably implement, but I haven't gotten around to. So if there is something in my script that's pretty straightforward to implement and I haven't got specific support for it, you can jam it in that run there and it'll work for you.
And what I'm doing right now is being sneaky and just having the training mode
This is like
automatically load the ROM.
this is like a really junky FC on Windows.
Hunt Junior too. This is just to save me from having to open the game and take forever. Hopefully it works first try.
I have faith.
Oh, look at that. So hopefully this is like a moment of truth right now. Um, and we would like.
Fingers crossed. I'm being stress tested here. You know, I'm not even streaming. My training mode has been tested.
All right. It says no, but the first thing I want to check is whether I actually am saving this to the correct place. So what is the path that I'm looking at right here? Yep, I saved this to the wrong checkout. So I made a boo-boo, which I assume I might have. And I want to look for emulators, Fightcade2, emulator,
You
Vimeo.
gotta run the right file, lads. That's what you take away from this.
Okay, memory address is not found for vhunt jr. Config file not supported using default. Alright, let's double check this path. Alright, that's correct. The question is, I ran... Ah, maybe this doesn't seem correct. Maybe I didn't save this file. Maybe that's what it was. There we go. So we made a boo-boo, it seems like. It seems like what we got was, we got input display, right? We got some hitboxes. We got infinite time, it looks like. But for some reason, Donovan and Lele are upside down. So how would we debug this?
That little girl's name, what's her, Annie or A?
Annie, I don't remember.
Anita, that's it.
Anita.
She's she's like, she's so confused. Just like me.
Poor Anita doesn't know what's going on. This seems fine, yeah. Nothing moves, nothing does. So that means probably what happened is we wrote some RAM value that we really shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And as far as which one that is, I couldn't tell you. Well, one thing we could do is we could just disable all of them, except for infinite time. So we'll just
Yeah,
comment this
I
out.
hope player movement isn't tied to the clock. It'd be it'd be a first if it is, but you never know.
Yeah, so it was definitely our can't auto refill. Player 1 health right not set. Interesting.
Yeah, it's telling you now what functions you don't have set up. So it might be.
Let's see what we got here.
Might be one of the health values because just the way the script is set up, I know from writing it, you don't have all the functionality for the sort of gradual increase of health. So it'd be looking to set it every frame. So that might have been one of the values messing with it or
Let's
something like that.
observe how Vampire Hunter does it. So it looks like there's some red health as it goes, right? And some green health, I guess, which is quote unquote white health, what we would see. But also it does look like we have the input display and all of the functionality from the training mode. All we're looking for is getting infinite health. That's pretty good. I mean, if you really look at it, what we did was like 5 minutes worth of work and an hour and a half of explanation.
Yeah, yeah.
So what we have to do is find... and I'm just going to consult my source to see if we can get something going for MAME real quick.
Ooh.
So just give me, I'm going to consult Mr. Internet on this one. Thank you, Mr. Internet. Whoops. That was definitely not the right thing to do. Alright. What did Mr. MAME say? Mr. MAME said we didn't find the ROM. VHunt JR2. Mr. MAME VHunt Junior 2. I guess it's Japanese revision 2, but I'll call it Junior 2. VHunt Junior 2. This is strange. Okay, let's use the old school method. Oh, it doesn't like that I don't have probably the Night Warriors base ROM. I think. If anyone knows offhand where to find this for MAME, feel free to give a shout out. But this might fix it. Alright, that was it. Good thing I've been doing this for years. Okay, so what we want to do is, we're having trouble with the player health, right? So we know that this is where we think the health is, right? Oh, we know we think the health is there. Something's strange about this. It seems like it should work. Anyway, we know the health is at this value, FF83CB. And if we open... If we get rid of some clutter first. Okay, we're in MAME now. This got messy real quick. We're going to load the ROM, unpause it by clicking run, look at the memory window, and try to go to that-ish range. We'll have to set some buttons real quick, sorry about that. One player start. These are so in the way. Ah! Alright, now that that's out of the way. Alright, so if we look in our box window, our memory address window, we can see that... Okay, where's this? Let me make a save state. Okay. So we can see that the RAM value in question was 0xFF83CB. And we can see that right here, it looks like it's 90 is the value.
Yeah, 90 makes sense.
And what happens if nothing changes if we jab Donovan? So, let's keep unloading stuff. So I can see that there's definitely a hit value somewhere, which is really interesting. It doesn't look like that's the correct address.
Surely a cheats file from
From the internet.
decades ago wouldn't lie to us, would it?
I don't think so.
Surely not.
What's the quickest? Obviously, if given enough time, I could find it. But what is
What's that
the?
one? Reset it again for me there. I might have spotted one.
You would like me to load the state
Yeah.
with full health?
Yeah.
All right.
No, it wasn't that one. Okay. Might be a matter of searching for the value, which health isn't the worst value to find through the MAME cheat system, but it's definitely much nicer not having to look for it.
It's interesting because you can see a lot of like get hit values.
Yeah, there's a crap ton going on. But... Oh wait, hold on. Are you looking at player 1 health when this is player 2 we're hitting?
You're 100% correct. This is not
Okay,
the first time I've done that.
Okay, phew, okay.
Alright, we have 42, 3C, 36. It's probably a byte value. And this is probably player status or something like that. Alright, let's confirm.
Yeah. Look at the byte before it. Were we setting some important byte to some garbage?
So it's 88CB, which is at the top left, and right now it's at 90. Right now it's at 8A. And it looks like there's another corresponding value right here. 8A.
Yeah.
8A.
Sometimes that's just a copy of the health or the health on the previous frame or all sorts, but you never know.
It could be like where this red value is decrementing to or something like that.
Yeah, it could be the red health as well, actually, yeah.
Okay, so let's... My initial thought is to just change this to right byte. Right player 1 health. Does that seem reasonable to you? Or player 2 health?
Yeah. Have a go
So
with them.
I'm gonna go right read player 2 health. Well, we want to be able to read it. We actually don't care about reading it. Unless your script internally needs it. I'm assuming it's aliased under WB. And then...
Under WB, absolutely correct.
Alright. So what I'm going to do is I hopefully saved that. And then... Looks like we're there, but we have some strange occurrence with the input script.
I think what happened there was you changed the size of it under the settings. But if you look at Donovan's health,
It's not moving.
it's staying maxed out, which is the correct behavior for how we have it configured. If you open the menu
The menu for
for the training mode,
the menu.
so that would be holding the coin button for, is it 3 seconds or is it 5 seconds? I can't remember.
Oh, I see what you mean. Holding the coin button, and you think that I went and made a boo-boo, and
Yeah.
input settings.
Change scrolling input settings.
Well, you're correct.
Size. Probably need to change the size just a little bit. I don't know why I even have it scaling that large, because
Because no one would ever need it.
just goes off. Like, there's some... I'm trying to remember. There's like sometimes when you run it on different rasters or like DirectX or whatever, it changes the size of the screen and all sorts of confusing crap like that. But I need to have another look at that anyway.
That was good though. We had a little snafu, and then we had
We
to
fixed
look
it.
and do some evaluation. So that looks good. Looks like we have infinite health. Looks like we don't actually need to write values for other things, just that one, and then meter is the last one.
Yeah, like you could stop here, but you probably don't want to sit there and build meter.
Write player 1 meter, write player 2 meter, two things we want. Maybe they work, maybe they don't.
Yeah, maybe this was what was bugging out the game. Oh, oh no, it
Looks like it just like sets it.
uh that's interesting how the game.
It's because of the stocks versus meter value differential. So what we're doing is we're writing a full bar, right? And then the game is saying, okay, go to the next full bar, and then it's not incrementing the stocks number until we hit
Until
again.
like you hit them.
Yep. So
Okay, there's see that's a special case for this game.
yep.
So you'd be going under right meter, and you would be putting in special code to configure that.
So I assume what we want to do is write a byte and say player 1 stocks, and if we remember from the cheat value, I think it's 10 is the max, 0x0a, 0x0a.
Yeah.
And let's see if that works. Looks like we have 10 special meter. Let's do it for player 2. Player 2. P2 stocks, which is actually the same number, but whatever.
Just loop it 99 times.
Look at that. We have full health.
We so what have we accomplished here? We've made a basic training mode with like we say 20 minutes of work. We hit one snag along the way, and we basically didn't even need to find any RAM values ourselves. We just needed to rob them off the internet.
Yep. And you can do this for many, many games. We should test whether record works.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So what's the workflow? It's like pressing the
feature.
coin button.
Yeah, so if you actually look in the output console, it's filled up with different text telling you what you don't have working and all that. But above it, it has the controls.
Okay,
for
replay, record with 2 presses. Interesting.
yeah. So
Is my coin leniency jacked up?
11 is fair. Is a fair
Value?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so there we're recording. Blah 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 blah. And then do we press it twice to stop recording?
You just press it once. You can just press it once, so you can press it twice, however you want to do it.
And I should be able to replay with 1
You
coin
should
press?
be able to just push it once and it replays.
It didn't happen.
Alright, well, that's probably something I have to look into then.
Do you think we got the mappings wrong?
No, because it is replaying the coin. All I can say is replay systems are a heck of a lot of fun to program.
That
I thought I had it ironed out, but it's always going to be issues with this sort of thing.
But either way, we got it pretty far.
You can look at the other features of the training mode as well if you go through the menu there. Like even though this is a very basic setup, like and the script console would be telling you how many more things you do need to get going to get the full range of functionality available to this. We got stuff like setting the opponent to hold a different direction, or different configurations for how hitboxes and inputs are being displayed on the screen. And I'm trying to think what else is available to this.
Looping slots, if we had implemented that.
Yeah, that's under recording.
Some display stuff. If we wanted
Yeah,
to change
recording should be working.
hitboxes off.
I'll have to look into that.
Oh, let's do some. We're doing some nerdy stuff now. I'm assuming your input function. It just never fired. So I wonder if there's something with me. Um,
Yeah, you'd be looking for
does it require facing left? No.
crap. What did I call it again?
Input. Read GUI
Should be
inputs.
under parse inputs or input parse, or wouldn't be GUI inputs because it's not under the GUI.
Read inputs. No. We
Try
want
try
playback.
parse input.
Parse inputs.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
So then we want to probably do a log here, right? We are going to play back. Does that seem reasonable?
That sounds reasonable to me.
Alright. So when you print stuff, you can print stuff to the console. Let's run. Okay, so it said we are going to play back. Alright, so that's layer 1 mix-up. We didn't get mixed up by layer 1. So now we want to look for toggle playback function. We are going to play back. Let's close this function. It looks like what you're doing is you're getting the slot. I don't think we have swapped inputs right now. If not, recording
Should
start.
be.
Let's try say nothing was recorded. If bool and bool is the toggle playback, so we probably should log that. Bool.
Yeah.
Let's see what it tells us. It says nothing was recorded, which is true from the start of this script. So blah 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 blah.
Press buttons as well, just in case.
Oh, it works. It just doesn't work with player 1, just the dummy. That's good.
What happened? Hold on. I've gotten confused now. Where did my script break? So I could put it on the to-do list. Was it you were?
Player 1, recording as player 1.
Oh, okay. As in you had pressed coin twice as player 2, was it?
Maybe I had pressed coin twice as player 2.
Or you had swapped controls as player 1.
Alright, let's see. I'm recording as player 2. And it works. Alright, how do I swap now? Swap inputs with 3 coin presses.
You triple press
Right.
coin.
And then I double press to record.
Yeah.
And then I should... Interesting. It seems like it works now? I'm gonna...
When you can't replicate the bug, it's the worst. But this VOD exists. I can go back and watch it. I will find it.
Yeah, Peon2's only records... Maybe what I had done was... I don't think I had done this, but I think I'm gonna chalk this up to user error.
It could be either way. Like a script like this, in some ways, is going to be a little finicky, just because of the level of abstraction I had to work with. But yeah, we'll see anyway.
It's because exactly. I was player 2. I was trying to record player 1 while I was player 2.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Which is kind of a useless feature anyway, unless you're gonna go real hard on making everything like universal between dummy and switch dummy, which is a problem that I was coming up against with the Vampire Savior one. It's like a lot of abstraction to work with and probably used very rarely.
Like I think I had done some work in that field, but then something else came up or other. But it is definitely worth doing because there are certainly are games where player 1 versus player 2 has differences.
So
more jank arcade games.
I think we kind of glossed over this, but we did it. We did it
We did
live.
do it. We did it live as well. Yeah.
We're just sitting there like, yeah, this should work. This should definitely work.
Yeah.
But I hope
Like
it was useful.
yeah. Just while you're at it, jump into alpha there. Not necessarily the game, just the config file or the file, just so we can see like everything that you can have set up. Sorry, Street Fighter Alpha 2.lua. By the way, the config file is just whenever you close this game, then the settings that we were playing around with there, it's going to save them and reload them next time we run the script. So there's stuff like facing direction. So all that does is if you're replaying your script, right? So that we saw earlier, there's a few different features to replaying inputs. So stuff like repeat or on block. I think I have on hit, but that wouldn't be there because it's not checking for hit. Stuff like that. But when you switch direction, sometimes you want the bot to also switch direction. So if it's like have them try and DP you or something,
Have them try
like,
to DP you. It's
yeah,
recording.
it would be on one side the DP would work, but then on the other it
Because
wouldn't.
you need a way of tracking which side the recording was done on.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So that's what the switch does.
I was trying to find it real quick. Look, it looks like it's this one.
The
D5 it was on this side, and 6B on the other. Nope, that's not it.
it's usually most games usually do like a 0 and 1, but you never know.
It looks like 8 right here is when I'm jumping. So that's the jump value probably.
Yeah.
And it looks like this 2 nope, that's not it.
Or it could be, look at FF8300B, I think that is there. Or that should be 0C, just above it. FF830C, C. It's a 0-1 at the moment, but I think if you jump to the other side, it switches to
FF803C.
83.
C. This one?
83. No, it was 0C.
FF
830C.
0C. That's a long one. Okay. 03C.
We're hold on. FF8. We should be in. Is that it? No. Take out an 8. I think we're 1-8 too many there.
830C. Ah, this is looking promising.
I think, yeah,
Yep.
I think I
It's
just
D.
hit my head, Ivy.
830D.
That's
No,
it
I think Peon is right. It looks like
I think.
we have a facing direction in FF830D.
Yeah, the handy thing is,
Look,
in most games now, your opponent is always facing the opposite direction of where you are. So if you look at how I did it in Alpha 2, I'm just reading the same value. But I'm checking whether it's 0 or 1.
but if you look at it, it looks like, okay, this one is facing right, and this one's facing left, right? Because if I jump, you see that it switches. And sometimes they're both at the same, which means it's probably like a turnaround frame.
Yeah.
Anyway, eventually, yeah, this is what I was kind of saying before, where I was saying, like, you can kind of look at the RAM values and do stuff, and you will eventually be able to kind of see where it was. And we knew that, like, when we were looking at the RAM values, we knew it was, like, kind of in this range, around 500s, and then we just kind of looked at it and determined that this was the facing direction. which is kind of neat. Um, so yeah, that's what I was saying about the MAME debugger, that it's like useful for like nuanced and sophisticated searching, but you can kind of eyeball a lot of this stuff if you're just a little patient and enjoy playing around in the game and looking at the matrix.
Yeah. Try to think, is there any other standout ones? Oh, hit stun. Hit stun is actually a big one, and every game seems to handle hit stun different. Some games, their combo counter is excellent, and you can just say when the combo counter, is not zero, i.e., they're in a combo, it works. Other games, their combo counter does not work. They don't know when or when you're not in a combo, and you have to do a lot of work to figure out when they're in hit stun. But hit stun handles things like making the UI just look a little bit nicer, making the health gradually fill up rather than just jump to full as we had it before. Or I think I have replay on hit set up as well. So if you want them to reversal DP right as they come out of a combo or something like that, or some sort of mix-up scenario, you can do it.
If you search, you will have the facilities.
Yeah. It's there if you go looking for it.
For sure. Well, I think successful stream. We got the training mode. I guess I have to make a pull request for it.
Yeah, you do now.
Oh god, I hate doing
An
PRs.
official contributor.
Don't remind me, I gotta go to work tomorrow.
As do I, actually.
Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in. And again, if you have more questions, definitely I think both of us we like doing this. So if y'all are wanting to help, get in contact with us and we can answer.
Like I would be fairly active in the Lua channel anyway.
Yep, and
like
that's in the Fightcade 2 Discord.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a blast. Thanks for chilling with us on some nerdy shit.
Yeah.
And I will be, if you look at the resources, there should be a lot more information about all the things that we went over. I think nothing that I went over isn't in these resources and more. So I think it's Mother's Day, Peon was telling me.
Yeah, so I'd best be heading off.
I'm about to call my
to
mom.
be honest.
and if y'all have a good relationship with your mom, y'all should do that too.
Well, it is over here anyway. I know some parts of the world it's different.
Is it supposed to be 3:15? 3:14?
It's today is yeah.
In the United States, it is May 9th. Just so you know.
Yeah.
It's the UK Mother's Day.
There you are.
All right. Take care, everyone. I'm gonna stop the stream now.
Right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye.